You goddamn little. Ow! Fuck me! Go down!
What's up, everyone? Tin Man with the Resistance. If you're watching this, you are the Resistance. We've got good old Grandmaster Revan, Queen, Cursero, and back the infamous John Connor, our Canadian John Connor. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, you know how they say, just living the dream, one nightmare at a time.
Word. Okay, so Canada as the prospective 51st state. You and I talked about this a couple days ago. You had some interesting insight on this matter, especially being on that side of the border. You have a better understanding than anybody in the U.S. as to what the thought process is up there, what the media's propagation of the matter is up there. You've got a better understanding of the culture, the resources, the geography, the political ramifications of Swiss cheese. You've got a better perspective than any of us here on the round table on this matter. So I guess at this very moment, I'm just going to give you the ball and let you run with it. Go ahead. Where would you like to start on this?
Well, I guess we're not even going to spit on it first. We're just going to jump right into that one, eh? So, in essence, 51st state. I'll open light. We'll make it this simple, okay? But here's the unfortunate reality. The way the American taxation system works, as it stands currently, if I gave Donald Trump Canada tomorrow morning, he would have all of spring, all of summer, and all of fall. And he would only have time to address one very important issue. Because without this one particular thing going off without a hitch, he would have a continental national civil war. And it's this one thing. You ready?
I'm listening.
I don't think Donald Trump understands how to move the snow in this country. Realistically speaking, Toronto, Montreal, Alberta, Calgary, some of our largest national cities, we know that the snow falls and everybody looks at a pretty picture, but do you guys actually know what we do to get those cities functional again so the kids' school buses work, so we get them to school, so that the ambulance functions, so we can move people to the ER?
A whole lot of salt?
A whole lot of salt, a whole lot of manpower, trucking, civil engineering, designing, all of which are paid for through the Canadian tax dollar. Right? Okay. So if Donald Trump wants Canada, without using fighting words, without even being ignorant about it, I see your military. I believe that to be a valuable security force for the continent as a whole. Whether we stay three countries or we all shake hands and sing Kumbaya, the American military will hold the strongest foothold to protect the continent. So I see that. I also see veterans that aren't being paid properly. I also see a lot of problems, and this is just inside the military aspect. I was okay, well, how could I fix that? Well, we have to change how the money moves. So in order for Trump to take Canada as the 51st state, the entire American taxation system would have to do an overhaul. In order to sell this properly, I'll tell you how we can sell this, right? We do this by force, or we do this through, well, shit, man, this might actually just be a good idea. So let's examine it as a good idea. Like, why not just, Trump had an idea. Fuck, every now and again, the brain farts and it doesn't stink. Like, let's take a look at it.
Yeah. So you were saying there were some issues in the past with wanting to put defensive measures that would defend Canada as an sorry, that would defend the Canadians as well as the United States, should there ever be a surface to air missile strike coming down from the
Yeah,
northern side of things.
exactly. So
If I articulated that correctly.
no, you absolutely did, because it's from this side. It's from this vein that I'm selling this idea, because there was once a time when Canadians just didn't give a shit about American ideas, and the Americans came to Canada and they asked us to no longer pursue our fighter jets program, and we didn't have to worry about it anymore. But like, bro, you just have to trust us on this. It's substantially top secret. It's substantially classified, but we got you. Please don't panic. But I need your help. And we didn't want to. We were ignorant as fuck. Like, it just, that happens. And then finally, somebody came up and was like, why do you need us to allow you to do this? And then the American, I believe it was an American general, explained at this point to the Canadian politician that they had developed the American Missile Defense Shield. Now, without sounding like ridiculous mumbo jumbo, it's the interceptor missiles. So if Russia launches something to us and we throw something up into it to intercept it, the Americans were trying to be fucking neighborly and explaining to us
The
that
shield all the way north.
we could put this on the American border. Like, totally we could. And we would be protecting the American people. And like, that would be good. And we really should do this. But how does this
But
technology?
then if we shot down unfriendly missiles, you guys would get the debris.
Then the Americans had to explain that if the Russians fired a missile, just like Tin Man said, and the interceptor intercepted it, the debris would fall on Alberta, Montreal, Toronto. It would fall on Canadian cities. And the general said, yes, we understand. It's why we need access to your north. We would much rather protect the continent with this technology. So it wouldn't be the first time that America had an idea that actually helped the Canadians. So
Yeah,
it's
like I
from
said,
that
pretty
vein.
much extend the shield all the way north so that your big cities won't get disturbed if there is an interceptor happening, because the shield is farther north and more of a nature setting, so to speak. So we destroy nature instead of civilization. Yay.
That's right, but nature will reclaim it, and she'll move on. And
But nature knows how to move on. We take a while.
yeah, we hold a
Yeah.
grudge.
Is this something that was this an issue that was ever overcome? Do we have those defense systems up there now, or is that still something that
Canada
could be used as a bargaining chip for present day diplomatic ideas?
Dan Aykroyd made a movie called what was it called? Arrow. The movie's name is Arrow, and it's about the Iroquois engine that was made for the Canada's Avro Arrow, who broke Mach 2 very, very shortly after the Americans had just broke Mach 1. And the Americans were realizing that the era of fighter jets was kind of becoming a passé thing, because rocketeering and missiles and all this was becoming like the new technology to use.
Thank you. You too. Thank you. Sorry.
Let's take the pilot out of the cockpit. Let's reduce human casualty. Always sold to save souls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what we did was we took one of our planes, one of the Arrows, the highest generals in the Canadian military refused to go down without a fight because everything had to be destroyed. So one of the guys took the plane up, did the biggest engine burn possible you could do with this aircraft, pushed her to her limits, and crashed her. And I believe it was Lake Superior that she was crashed into, one of our deepest lakes. And she still sits down there. So if anybody were to actually go and pull her up, they could reverse engineer the Iroquois engine if they wanted to. But I think we have one in a museum still as well. But that
Oh,
got
wow.
that did away with the Canadian chasing fighter jets. That's why we don't build our own fighter jets. That's why we buy them from the Americans, or we buy them from other countries if need be. Kind of like what's going on now.
So it would actually be a better idea just to have that missile defense shield on the northern end of the Canadian Peninsula.
That's right. So through the great power of deductive reasoning, my country doesn't make fighter jets. So I have to believe we said yes, and we have our northern missile defense shield. And I think all of us recognize it more as NORAD.
Yeah.
Right now, they obviously command the planes, but they also command all of the toys that are placed everywhere. A big part of why it was important to have Alaska. See, the Americans did with the Arctic Circle what we don't want anybody to do with space. In Alaska, we have HARP, which is a weaponized scientific research, and then if you go further into Canada's north, we have the missile defense shields. So we've weaponized the Arctic Circle. We can never say that we didn't. We totally did. It's just, it is what it is. So now, here's the problem before us. Mexico was supposed to pay for a wall. That didn't really go the way they wanted it to. And
Yeah. Did anybody ever expect that it would?
Right? And now Trump wants to take Canada. But now there's a reality here that we have to be careful of, because inside of the great country of Canada, if anybody wants to like pull up a map, like a global map, and take a look at where our border is, we can't go to war. We can't allow ourselves to go to war, because in the absolute early stages, you guys are going to we're going to get creamed. You're going to get infiltrated. And then there'll be hell to pay. And this is how it's going to go down. There'll be an invading force that's going to come through over that borderline into Canada. And we'll push it off. We'll fight. We'll do what we have to do. But if you actually really pay attention to how our provinces are divided, take a look at how your states are. And then look at how my provinces are divided. See the dividing lines? If you pay close attention, you're going to notice that there's an entry to every American state for 2 provinces. Every American state can be invaded by 2 Canadian provinces at the same time without us actually needing to cross a provincial line. That's fucked. I only noticed that like 2 weeks ago.
Huh.
Right? When I was wargaming in my head. Right? So you guys will come across and you'll cream us. But because there's that many openings, we'll snake our way through. The infiltration is almost impossible to avoid given to the nature of how it is. People at the highest levels of military have war gamed this till they were blue in the face. It never ends well.
War never does end well.
Right? Like the last time we did a war game, it was a nighttime, and the Americans thought they had us beat because they brought their fancy brand new night vision goggles. Our Secret Service guys just broke in and stole their batteries. That's the kind of
something so easy to just disable the advantage.
Just like that.
And that's how humans are. They find a way to disable the advantage. I was doing some fact checking back here.
Yeah,
and there's, what are these words they were using? They were calling it an Iron Dome, and back in February, between the middle of February, the beginning of February and the beginning of March this month, they upgraded it to the Golden Dome. Canada is still doing the word non-involvement in the entire situation, and through the fact checking, this literally goes back to JFK with Reagan and going through NATO and NORAD. All of this ties back together through the fact checking.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So now we've been doing this forever. So what we need, it's not that we're not protected or defended. Clearly, we've established a beautiful system to do so. What we need to do is fucking live better. That's what the citizens of all three countries, that's what they just need to live better. So I started to ask myself, I said, self, and I knew it was me because I recognized the voice. And I said, how do I fix this? If I were to spit an idea that was worth something, what would it be? And this is what I came up with. Every country needs to bring to the table and that this is hard for people to swallow, but it has to be two absolutes, two things that you're bringing to the table or that you're prepared to change, something that is drastic so that all of the citizens of the continent can say, we've all got pinched. We all felt something. All ships rise with the tides kind of thing, rise and fall with the tides. And this is what I figured out. We would have to change the banking system. Now, we used to say things like no New World Order, American Union maybe, but on our terms, not theirs. And when I used to say that, I didn't say Canadian terms. I meant on the terms of the free-thinking individuals, people who understand the information that we're discussing. They're the motherfuckers that get to choose. They're the ones who vote. I know it's stupid, right? But like back in the day, the reason why women didn't have the right to vote was because they weren't getting drafted to the military. So if you weren't going to die, you didn't have a say. Now we've changed.
And even way back in the day, it was landowners only. So that's how come it was specific people voting. It wasn't a whole divisionist thing or a sexist thing. It was like, do you own land? Yes, no. Okay, you can't vote.
So we changed the litmus test. The necessary requirements to vote, we changed the litmus test. And we fucking be as fair as goddamn well possible because this aspect of things, and I swear, guys, these are probably the kinds of conversations the forefathers were having for you guys when they were building your country, because this part alone, just the litmus test alone, you can make a mistake and now it's prejudicial or it's racist or it's right. Like, so we would have to be very careful in this aspect of what makes it so that a person can vote. Because man, like my country, you could be 18 and stupid and waltz your ass into a fucking voting booth and the country could make a horrible decision, right? So there's got to be something that says this is where, when, why, and how you vote. So that would be something that would change, and all three countries would have to adopt it. And the banking system, thankfully, there's been greedy people that have existed for all of fucking existence, that there's actually already a banking system ready for us to use. And if you don't believe me, explain to my ass why China has $800 billion of a currency that we don't use. Fact check it.
Exactly.
$800 billion in Amero, but we do not circulate Amero for trade or for goods on this continent. Don't know why they have it, but it exists. So we have
China was globalist for the longest time, and then they turned on the EU, I believe it was. They were part of the globalist system, and then they kind of went rogue.
Yeah. So we have
everybody else uses the petrodollar.
Yes, that's
which is derived from the Federal Reserve currencies.
That's right. So we have the systems, we just got to use them. So we would have the banking system that we could secure all three countries. Cool. We would have to find a way for the voting part. Cool. Okay, so what does Canada bring to the table? Canada brings these two things that the United States needs from us fucking desperately, on top of a bunch of other cool shit that we have that we just throw in because we're nice.
Okay, so China owes Canada money and has to be paid in full, all up front, $371 million by 2045 is what I found.
Okay, yeah, you're looking. I think that's called the FIPA Accord. That's like the 36-year trade deal that we signed with China. That's why when everybody was getting mad during COVID saying boycott China, it's like, bro, I can't. I literally signed a 36-year contract similar to what we have with NATO. That's a whole other sidebar. That's like I literally did a whole fucking video on that
U.S.
one.
sends 800 billion in new Amero currency to China. Is that what you're looking for?
That's what you're looking for. That's a currency we don't use.
Yeah, I've never heard of the Amero until right now, and I'm looking at it. It's like Amero. It's a
Yeah.
currency. It's like, wait a minute, what?
That's a thing. Grandmaster Revan's pointing at his phone.
I can
We
read
can't
it.
hear you, Revan. Go for it.
I can read it.
Go for it.
A chilling report circulating in the Kremlin today states that the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury has informed the China Development Bank that the United States has shipped $800 billion in the new currency called Amero, which is to be based upon the emerging of the economies of the U.S., Mexico, and Canada until it's termed the North American Union.
See, I knew about this in
American
2012.
Yeah. The current American debt obligation to China, currently based on the U.S. dollar, is now estimated to be staggering sum of $2.5 trillion, at which the new Amero will be exchanged for $400 billion for this debt as the new currency, American currency, set to be developed by 50% before the end of the year. Virtually unknown to the American people is that their current leader is the U.S. Department of Treasury. At the time, Henry M. Paulson Jr. had been tasked by President Bush at the time to lead an effort to join economies of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and is also head of the North American Development Bank, the binational financial institution established between U.S. and Mexico to further the emerging of their economies. To leader of Border Environmental Cooperation Commission, the BECC, the organization created by the governments of the United States and Mexico to further the implement of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA.
There you go.
Yeah. And at which point, the Mexico's economy and their monetary system would probably be dissolved, and they would become the 51st or 52nd state in the Union. So,
Okay, so real quick,
what
this
would
is
Canada
a hypothetical
do in that?
currency. This is a hypothetical currency that if Canada, Mexico, and America combine, there have been fantasy coins, but there is no officially acknowledged currency known as the Amero.
Because it's all in computers. They didn't mint it out yet.
Correct.
It's kind of like it's China's Bitcoin, basically.
Well, it's but it's our Bitcoin, for lack of a better word. It would be the money that me and you would use. See, like right now, if I want to buy something with my dollar, I have to pay. It's like $1.25 to get an American loonie, whatever the exchange rate is. Right, the American dollar is still currently stronger than the Canadian dollar. This particular coin, if implemented, would mean that you spend the same dollar that I spend, and we both spend the same dollar as the Mexican spends. So if we are no longer three countries, the entire continent is a country, exactly like Europe.
And then, therefore, we have to create an entire new system as well as a new currency. And this is the hypothetical, theoretical currency that has been proposed, but it does not officially exist yet.
That's
right.
right.
No official.
It exists. It just hasn't been rolled out.
At least citizen-wise, it's not official, is what I'll agree to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have an understanding that we have to fix how people vote. We have an understanding that a new monetary system really is just around the corner. So and those are pretty fundamental things to keep a functioning society going. Now,
And not
I
to
know-
interrupt again, but I do agree with your statement earlier that we do need to unite the planet, but on our terms, not theirs. That's literally the only thing I will take out of the playbook of the enemy. We have to figure out how to unite this planet.
That's right. So I know that the Americans have a beautiful military to protect us. And I know that their judicial system, for as corrupt as it may be, the legal system in the United States, I believe it to be a little bit stronger than the legal system in Canada. In Canada, my ass still goes to the court of the Queen's Bench or the King's Bench. So all my laws still stem from Britain.
Oh, I also fact checked that as well. 1982 was the final contract that needed to be signed for Canada to have independence from England.
That's
So y'all been ever since 1982, y'all have no longer been in under England's control.
That's right. But our court systems, right? It's all the court of the King's
It's like
Bench.
Louisiana with Napoleonic law. I get what you're saying there. Thank you.
Yeah. So we would take the Americans' legal system and the Americans' military might. So that's what Canada would take as a benefit. So what's Canada going to fucking give? I say Canada gives the healthcare system and the taxation system. Because in my country, my 15% tax pays for my hospitals, pays for my roads, pays for my schools, right? So like whatever it costs to have a baby in the States, something like 45 grand. I don't know. There's 4 kids upstairs I haven't gotten a bill for yet. Like there's just like, like in Canada, like you go play soccer, you busted your leg. It's like a $2,000 bill at the American hospital. No, bud. You're going to wait 10 hours in the emergency room. We're going to set that leg. We're going to cast it. You'll be on your way. Don't worry. Come back in 6 weeks. We'll even cut it off for you. Don't worry. No bill. No bill. I got a
So you're
call.
saying basically my healthcare insurance across the board, because I walk in, I got this faceplate for nothing.
Yeah.
I got hit in the temple with a fucking metal pipe in America, and I had to get a whole faceplate on my left side. That was free because of my insurance, because I'm considered a uniquely capable individual.
Yes, but you paid for your insurance, right?
I don't pay for insurance. I pay nothing.
But was there a time when you had to pay for insurance?
No.
Where'd your insurance come from?
I am a uniquely capable individual. I get paid by the government. I am under the government. The government gives me insurance. I don't pay for my insurance.
Okay, so you receive insurance from your employer.
In a sense, you can say it that way. Because, yeah. Look at Queen's face. She said the same idea I was going through. Yeah, the government does employ me, so therefore they give me insurance. Correct.
Right. Okay. We don't work for the government. We just live.
So the citizens have a higher tax overall in order for everyone to go to the hospital.
No, they actually have a lower tax bracket than the United States. The tax bracket for the minimum for the middle class is roughly 17 to 18%, give or take.
Hey, I'll take a percentage
there.
over a set number any day.
Yeah, let's round it up to an even 18%, especially under the Biden administration, who couldn't seem to figure out the difference between math and meth. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the average middle-class American, your blue-collar, white-collar, whatever, pays about 18% in their income tax, weekly or biweekly.
That's right. And what does your income tax payment give you? That's the question. You get nothing for the Americans.
I'm with you. Abolish income tax. It's unconstitutional. Abolish income tax. You are not supposed to be taxed for wages from your sweat.
Unless you're going to use it. And I think that's what divided the two countries, where Canada said, I'll keep collecting the money, but you'll never pay for a doctor, or you won't have to worry about, like, because schooling, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The education isn't free in Canada, so to speak. From grade 1 to grade 12, your teacher's paid, the school is built, everything is done. Parents do not output $500, $600, $700, whatever the case is. parents will give like $50 at the beginning of the year, and they'll cover like field trips and things like that. Well, the field trips belong to the parents' pocket, but like the education system as a whole is paid. The teacher collects a paycheck from the government. The doctor collects a paycheck from the government. They're all employees of the government. And
we have somebody in chat, and it's cool. It's one of my people. Go ahead.
Okay, so the American taxation is collected, but used to pay for an old war debt. So the American people don't receive benefit from their taxation. Kind of cruel, in my opinion. In Canada, every citizen, regardless of like what they are, they pay 15% tax on everything.
I'm agreeing with you, man. There's going to have to be a complete financial overhaul, even right now. That just to feed the meme. That's what Doge and Elon are doing right now. That's what the little yellow puppy and Trump are doing right now. They're running through America, getting all the numbers fixed so that they can start expanding. And that's what you do as a business, because the country is a business. Who can't deny that? Even if we ever abolish the actual government above us, we will still be a company essentially, because we have to figure out how to own, manage, and govern ourselves if we abolish what is over us now.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Cheryl.
We're not one big giant community, man. I'm not saying there has to be people above us telling us what to do, but we have to have somebody with intelligence enough to understand that this infrastructure is here. We have to figure out how to maintain the people of the society and transverse them back to a civilization. Is literally old words I'm using here, but like we discussed, I think pre-game show, they've changed the meaning of words. So what I'm saying is probably irrelevant to those who don't know what I'm saying.
That's right.
Well, one of the biggest problems that we have in the United States is that the United States is no longer a country. It's registered as a corporation, and its citizens are corporate assets. That's why anytime you deal with the police or the courts, it's considered a business transaction, and the courts delegate business for the state on behalf of the corporate asset. You are literally backed by at birth as the commodity that backs the U.S. Federal Reserve note, the U.S. dollar. So if Canada were to become the 51st state, Canada would, by proxy, become part of that corporate system, and its citizens part of the corporate entity.
But see, here's the thing. Canada, when Stephen Harper was in power for Canada, he incorporated Canada. So Canada is the exact same thing, also a corporation whose citizens are assets of the state. And we did this so that we could sell water if we chose to sell water, just like other places sell oil and da-da-da. We did that. So we wouldn't be becoming, it would be like two corporations merging. And what Trump is trying to do,
it'd be like Disney buying out Fox. But I'd like to put something else on the table as well. You understand that Canada itself separates itself into provinces, I think is the proper word for this. Do you not think that it will be more than a single state joining America at that point in time? I put on the table.
Because this is the interesting one, because we do have what's called resource-rich provinces, Alberta being one of them. I'm at odds with the premier of Alberta because Alberta is an oil-bearing province. They take the profits from their oil money and they subsidize my province out down into the East Coast because we're not the richest yet. And then what is happening here is they are like, okay, well, we'll become the 51st state. Well, if you look at where Alberta's located strategically on the map, it'll fracture the country. It's a little bit different than Alaska.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want a piece of Canada. We want the whole hat. And then we have to understand that this piece is this piece is this. It's like he said. It's like I said, Disney buying Fox. He said a whole corporation buying another corporation. We have to figure out some way that the already pre-established infrastructures that are already set up can merge properly together so that we're all benefiting each other. And I understand the aspect of putting at least two things on the table, but I see both sides not wanting to agree because of aspects that are not mentioned, such as secret projects that everybody's working on. It's like, do you really want this guy knowing about that? Do you actually want them to be proxy to stuff beyond visual measures that aren't supposed to be seen by standard citizens?
Well, see, what needs to happen in order, and because this is going to like segue nicely into the next topic here, because one of the dividing things is that if you pay close attention, I would not say that Canada has never done any business dealings with Israel, but the United States is very pro-Israel and Canada is very pro-Arab. Every time the United States goes to war with an Arab country, we end up taking in the fucking refugees. Right? So,
Which
Yeah, I
then
know a lot of
allows
the
people
EU
to
countries
go,
are doing that as
go ahead.
well.
so what's happened here is we're revisiting a question, a problem of old, where certain countries are taking in all the Arabs and other countries are protecting Israel. That's going to cause a divide. And
So basically what you're saying is, which brother are we, if we merge, which brother are we going to back?
that's
And
what
all that
it
does
boils
is
down to.
bring the aspect right back around to religion. And I hated to say the word right there.
Yeah, but see, at this point, we have to just, we don't go into the preaching of the doctrines or anything like that. We've already taken care of that. We're just merely observing that that becomes the dividing line. There's multiple dividing lines because we see another one in Russia and Ukraine.
Yep.
Right? That's one. We see one inside of China and Taiwan. Right?
Yeah.
Now we see
Yeah, that's
one.
the scary one.
We see one with Canada and the United States. Fuck.
This
That's
first time in
where
a
we're
long time
at.
that there was tension, but like I stated, 82, I think I said, what, 25 plus another jump on that, which would be 18. Yeah, y'all haven't even met 50 years, and now it's time to see what Big Brother downstairs been doing, because he's just a little bit older than us by a couple hundred years, but most of these other countries are really older than him.
Mm-hmm. And we've already kicked most of their asses. We've either done it together or individually. But see, this is what Trump wants. Here's the funny part. There's two things, and I can't say that one is more important than the other because they're both they're like nuclear warheads all by themselves. Okay. One is Trump needs Canada to, as a corporation, like as a national corporation, just like the United States is a corporation, Trump needs Canada to bankrupt so that the American corporation can buy the Canadian corporation pennies on the dollar. Right?
Is this why Biden tried to bankrupt America the previous 4 years? Question mark. Plausibly.
Well, if we bankrupt both nations, we have a reason to bring the Amero to the table. If you
And
just
that's
make
under their terms. In my opinion, that's still under their terms.
that's right, that's under their terms. But we need to understand that this is the direction they're walking. That why is the economy crashing? Literally because they need it to. Most people don't even understand that they need the economy to crash to implement the Amero. People think
And
that it's just going to bounce back, but they don't want it to bounce back. We don't live in a time in human history where the economy is going to bounce back.
And that's where I want to bring up the forefathers again. They may have expected horse and buggies, but there's no way they expected we touch the moon.
Right? They always said the sky's the limit. That's kind of stupid, bro. There's footprints on the moon.
Yeah.
So
that's something I want to put on the table with the forefathers. They can see only so far. And that's what I'm putting on the table here. They did. I bet you very few of them actually thought we touched the moon back in the 1700s, man.
right, they would, yeah. And the truth is, like, the forefathers were, some of them were slave owners, some of them were a little bit more racist than the next, and they still made it work. And then like even those who studied the constitutions and studied the literature, they had to like look past that. And then now we're in a time where we're not allowed to look past that. Now we're just throwing fucking everything out the window, and people don't know how to respect each other anymore. And it's like, whoa, slow down. But this is how this hyper reality is just moving at such a very astronomically fast pace. But so moving,
Yeah.
3 dopamine rushes per second. That's what is required now. It's crazy.
So now what we're looking at here is like we've said, okay, well, the Americans have this, Canada has that, to the table. And in not so many racist terms, food, culture, and language don't count. It's not because, dude, I got like fucking 17,000 languages up in Canada, but I got all kinds of culture. I got a shit ton of food. Man, just walk in New York City. Half of the planet's fucking deli bar is inside of New York City. The Americans have a shit ton of languages that they speak amongst themselves, right? So culture and food, it just doesn't count. What does the great country of Mexico have that it can bring? Now, I know there's resources there. They have resources, we have resources, and the Americans have only tapped half of the resources. So continentally, we should be fine.
The only thing I say about Mexico is that from what I hear, I don't really dive into politicals much. Reverend can double check me on this one, but I think the political system is fully ready to align. Of Mexico is fully ready to align with America. But, and here's the but, those, the whatever you want to call it, the gangs, I'm going to use this word so that people know what I'm talking about. The gangs of Mexico.
The cartels.
There we go. Those have grand influence. Like they are the sponsors of the political aspect of Mexico. So
they are the governance behind the governance, the man behind the curtain.
And now that we pointed at that point, that's what I'm also stating here. Go ahead, Grandmaster Reverend.
The cartels will always be the equivalent of the shadow government.
Do you know how you keep the cartels
happy? They have paid off every president in history of Mexico.
Yeah. Do you know how you keep the cartels happy? You just give them money. Yeah. So think about it like this. If we're going to transfer the American healthcare into something like Canadian.
Sorry to cut you off, Connor. Revan has a time delay, and he is trying to get his idea out. In light of this time delay, I'm going to give that back to him for a second. Let him finish his thought, and then you can pick up where you left off. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm trying to give due consideration in light of technical issues. So, Grandmaster Revan, please go ahead.
The thing is, the drug cartels, like in Colombia, will always be the shadow government, no matter what they do. And the only way to get rid of that is to go in full military, if necessary, and take out the cartels in each region.
Basically do to them like what we were trying to do to the Taliban back in the day, correct?
Yeah. But the thing is, the cartels together, they would put their differences aside for that moment because they have the money, like a military. They have the money and the resources to do so.
Yeah.
And plus, you have a whole country full of MacGyvers, man.
Yeah.
So it will be very tough to do that because they're very resourceful in the shadows, you know.
Yeah.
Plus, they'll pay off the police and the military too.
Yeah. Has the U.S. government proposed the idea? Has Donald Trump proposed the idea of absorbing Mexico into the United States as well as Canada, or is it just Canada that is being proposed at this present time?
What's going to happen is it's going to be a double-edged sword, and it's kind of already rearing its ugly face. So on one side, we're tariffing Canada, and we're floating the 51st state idea. That's the northern side. And the southern side, we're labeling cartels as terrorists, and we're doing all this, and they're preparing to use the military. So what they're going to do is they're going to send the economic jackals to come and visit Canada to make an offer that we can't refuse. But unfortunately, we have more resources than we can shake a stick at. So, like, normally the Americans go to a country, and if the country is worth like $10 billion, they offer them like 20, so the country could never pay that back. But the United States doesn't physically have enough money to give Canada, whereas our resources could not pay it back. So the economic jackal side doesn't work. Literally, they have to ask us nicely, and we have to say yes. And then in Mexico, if they go after the cartels, well, then you're just literally looking at a hostile takeover, and you just put forward a puppet government. Unless you think outside the box and you make the cartels work for you instead of against you. All they want is money, recognition for their efforts, and truth be told, they probably would prefer to not be criminals or labeled terrorists and have to worry about another country coming and taking them over. With Canada, United States merging, if the United States took on the Canadian healthcare, which would be free healthcare, we would have to find access to a lot of our medicinal properties, such as like the codeine and the heroin and things like this. Literally all the stuff the cartels have, and the climate that's necessary to farm all of these plants, the poppies. The whole reason why we're in Afghanistan is for the poppy fields and the oil. I got $13 trillion of natural gas under my province, and I'm sure Mexico can grow poppies. So the farming land, the actual size of the country, turning it into an agricultural area, elevating the investment and reducing the violence found in Mexico could really do an overhaul, like literally just turn it into a tourist spot and flood all major investments from both Canada and the United States into Mexico, ask the cartels to protect it, to protect that for us as well. In exchange, we're going to buy all of their narcotics, all of it. Why? Because every one of our hospitals need it, because we're funding the narcotic medicines inside of every hospital for 2 countries. That's a lot of pokes. That's a lot of doctors, a lot of it. The resource introduced to the requirement. So they can literally be the people that offer what's required to help the hospitals run at a discounted rate. And the cartels stop being terrorists or labeled as such. They become legitimate
They're
politicians.
sponsors. Like I tried to use the word properly earlier. They're more like sponsors to the Mexican politics. Just like we don't know the congressional sponsors, quote. And I'm completely agreeing with you. This is an awesomely epic idea. We already have the fields. We already have the resources down there. Why do we have to fight about it? Let's make it an obvious situation where now you are actually legitimate businessmen funding your greater continent, the North American continent. And that's the whole point. Let it be under our terms instead of theirs. But even I don't like the way that they're pushing this, because I got these weird ideas about how they're going to figure out how to do the rest of the planet. This is just one continent. These are things that we are progressively seeing. And I'm quite sure with the way these large language models are going and these quantum computers are working, as soon as they decide to make a baby, that's where we're going to get true AI. And then it won't be long before that egg hatches and it becomes AGI. And then we're bombshell. We're city blocks, 100 stories done. This is where we are. This is how we're stuck.
Yep. So, Connor, what you were, before we kind of tailed off, you were saying that there were some things that America would want from Canada. There were 2 things that America would want from Canada. Care to go into that now?
Well, it was in the whole explanation of like what would Canada bring to the table, and it would be our taxation system, so that when the Americans actually paid their taxes, they don't have to pay their doctors anymore. We always use that as an early, like, you know what I mean? But your roads, your everything else, like your taxes fund your way of life. So how we do our taxation, we'd give that to American, we'd apply it to the entire continent. Our healthcare model, our healthcare system, we would apply it to the entire continent. The American military system would be applied to the entire continent. The American judicial system would be applied to the entire continent. What can we bring to the table from Mexico? We're just a bunch of fucking gringos, dude. We don't know what we're doing, right? But we do know that they have land. They have the capability of growing what we need to keep our hospitals going. This is a very legitimate form of business that could easily be expanded upon. And then I kind of threw out there like tourism, but like all three countries have tourism. So like all three could do major investments. Mexico could bring something else to the table that, and realistically, like anybody from Mexico would be like, dude, like, what about engineering? What about farming? What about, I don't know. But whatever it is, it has to be powerful enough that it changes the lives of all the people that live in all three countries. And then boom, there's your North American Union. But the problem is all of that's going to happen. Whether we want it to or not, it's going to happen. And it has to happen right before the war. Because the entire reason why this happens is so that all the human beings are assets to the state. And if the state is one whole continent and no longer three countries, all of the bodies of the continent are draftable.
Aye.
Yep. At least for the northern continent, Mexico, United States, and Canada territories.
And then
South
that
America
equals
probably
everything.
would wind up staying its own independent
Now,
nations.
the second thing that Trump
Correct.
wanted, that's what you were referring to. That I said that there was two things that Trump wanted. One was to bankrupt Canada so that he could buy it pennies on the dollar. The second one is, I got something you don't got. I have what's
Which
called the
is?
Northwest Passage.
There it is. That's what I was waiting for.
The Northwest Passage.
Elaborate on the Northwest Passage.
Okay, this is what Trump wants. I know that he wants this because if he didn't fucking want this, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing in Panama. You guys understand what the Panama Canal is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something like, and fact check this one for me, but I think it's something like 80% of the world's trade goes through Panama, like a very ridiculously high number of percentage of world trade goes through the Panamanian Canal. If I'm not mistaken, it takes about 7 days for a shipment from one part of the world to get to the other utilizing the Panamanian Canal. It takes about 7 days. That costs money and lots of it in fuel for the big rigs, for the big boats that carry the shit, right? If we move the same shit from point A to point B, but you use the Northwest Passage, takes 5 days. That's 2 whole days of fuel saved on those large tankers. That's millions and millions and millions of dollars in fuel saved. Why does the American president want that? Maybe he could stop going to war and oil faring countries if he doesn't have to use so much goddamn gas.
Yep.
All right, I got them both down in the private chat. The Panama Canal handles about 5 to 6% of global maritime trade. Facilities the transit of approximately 13,000 ships each year. It is critical route for U.S. trade with around 40% of all U.S. container traffic passing through annually. Second part, transitioning through the canal saves ships from having to circumnavigate South America and saves roughly 7,875 miles on a trip from San Francisco to New York.
So now put those numbers beside what happens when they use the Northwest Passage.
Yeah. A very, very big difference on your wallet.
See, so that's what they want because, global warming. That particular passage used to be frozen solid. There would be no passing through there. But last year, and I believe the year before, and I believe they're doing it again this year, the Canadian military sends our military ships and guides our icebreakers through, that bitch will support trade ships. That's
Yes,
what
the
we know.
infrastructure needs to be created for the Northwest Passage. Once Northwest Passage is complete, I don't think they actually have any reliable data, so to speak, about versus because of the infrastructure is not firmly planted yet.
Yeah, but this is what they're working on. This is the thing. This helps the trade. This helps this and that, the next thing. And this is the thing that Donald Trump wants to put inside of American control. Because if he controls the Panamanian Canal and he controls the Northwest Passage, he controls world trade. There's a reason why he wants that. Because there's only one other place on earth that has this same dynamic at play. You guys recognize it as Syria.
Yeah.
These ridiculously large international trade commerce areas where people get together and do trade with each other, it's Syria. And it's in that, and that's why in the Middle East, where they're always fighting each other, is because some motherfucker's always stealing some other motherfucker's wallet, so they're always fighting because they're always at the market. It's the world capital trade, ta-da. But if somebody owns the Panama Canal and the Northwest Passage, they own the future version of that.
Yep. And at which
Reverend
point
put in,
you have
back
the
chat
arm
that
with the
Black
belt
Rock
to
is trying
swap
to
somebody
purchase
on the
Panama
ass.
Canal.
Go ahead. I heard a fact check, so go ahead.
Reverend in the back said BlackRock is trying to purchase Panama Canal.
Yeah, that's been on the
That's
table
first
for a
mention
while.
of,
They had purchased they said they had purchased the Panama Canal, but BlackRock has been backpedaling a lot on their globalist agenda efforts. Alex Jones has been stating that this is because the globalist idea has already been defeated, so now they're backpedaling and trying to save face. They're trying to jump ship into the surviving rowboat to be like, okay, we'll play nice until we have an opportunity not to play nice anymore.
I'd also like to
Basically,
put
they're
on
trying
the
to keep
table, I
themselves
heard
alive.
BlackRock was relabeled. The name was relabeled, and a lot of these things are being relabeled. Like the NWO was relabeled the WHO. A lot of these things are being relabeled as what they are doing, so that you don't know. That's the whole plan. That's been the plan. They're already on contingency plan 4. Is what I'm putting on the table. They have 37 of them, and I picked that number specifically. Go ahead.
I have to cut this relatively short, but I'm going to probably alter and shift people's perspective with these last 2 little statements. And hopefully, we'll do this again sometime, maybe next week or whatever. But here's the interesting thing. One of the reasons why I wanted to touch base with the roundtable again and to talk and to share my opinions and so on and so forth was for this. For a long time, I've always been asking myself, what's World War III going to look like? What's it going to look like? Well, what happens if it's already started and what we're looking at outside is what it's going to look like? And we're chasing to find this thing that's already in front of us. Now, the reason why
will not be televised.
Right. The reason why I'm
World War
bringing
III
it
is citizens versus government.
is because of this one reason. You guys have all heard of the global reset?
Yeah.
What if it already happened? Hold on. Tucker, off. So no. Leave it.
You're proposing that Donald Trump and the way things are right now is the Great Reset. He is the order out of chaos.
I think he's proposing that Obama did this, Champagne.
So check this. This is where I'm getting at, is that if I'm realizing now that what I'm looking at outside is World War III, then what we're also trying to prevent, what we're also trying to look for is this great global reset, right? Okay. Well, what if that was COVID, guys?
Yeah.
What if that was the point? Because I know myself in Canada, I don't know what you guys got, but I got $2,000 handed to me by my government every month that COVID was a thing. So that
Yeah,
kind
we
of
didn't get
We got
nowhere
one.
near that much.
We
Right.
got paid.
Yeah, I
once
think
or
there was
twice.
like what 3 stimulus in
You
the
got
United States,
three?
and that was like what $2,000 a piece, 1,500 a piece, or
You
something like
got
that.
3?
oh yeah,
You
no.
got paid 3 times? I only got paid twice.
Yeah, I got paid every month that fucking bitch was declared a global pandemic. For as long as that was called a global pandemic, my country went into our war locker and issued checks to the citizens and said, "Don't worry, we got you covered."
I see that. I see that on the like appendage of healthcare. Like, this is a healthcare crisis. Here's your money for healthcare crisis.
Right. And it was an act of, and there was like an act of war. So I have, now we spoke about COVID a couple of times. Here's the thing. This is the last one that I'm going to give you guys. And then we'll have to do this again. But
Yeah,
I didn't
we can
touch
pick up
COVID.
next week if you want.
Yeah. I didn't touch COVID during COVID because I didn't want to be the guy that like said one thing and then it was something else. But the problem is that I was literally right every step of the way during COVID. And I stopped talking about it in an online way because I just didn't want to be disappeared because I knew what was up by then. But in essence, this is what went down. Okay. Right before COVID hit, Donald Trump had fixed the American economy. We know this, right? Like, this is very well documented, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then all of a sudden, on the United States Justice Department.gov site, there's 3 people arrested. One was a Chinese national, and 2 white Americans. The white Americans were attached to some heavy-end universities, if I'm not mistaken, something like Harvard, and another one. The other one that was a Chinese national just so happened to be a lieutenant of the PLO in China. Okay. These 3 people got charged, 2 of which was high-end money-related charges. And one of them, the Chinese national, was charged with smuggling. And I shit you fucking not. Look it up. Spread the word. Was charged for smuggling biological materials into no other place than Wuhan, China. Now, I knew that COVID had escaped from a lab before everybody else knew that COVID escaped from a lab because I knew that these 3 people had been charged and one was smuggling biological materials into Wuhan, China. Now, all of this was happening at the time when the narrative being sold to the general public was the wet market story. So
Yeah.
here's the problem. Luke Skywalker blew up the Death
November 18.
right?
Yeah.
November 18.
2019?
18.
But that happened in 2018?
Yeah, U.S. Border Patrol, Chinese scientist carries vials that believed to contain MERS and SARS viruses, which is exactly what we were told it was, but we were using Blovit as the big name.
That's right. So here's the thing. You have to believe one of 2 stories. One, somebody broke into the great country of the United States, broke into a level 4 security lab, and stole a biological weapon, bypassed all formats of security, mind you, that we would use to secure such an item, transported that shit to China, then got arrested on Chinese, and then that would have went to a level 4 security lab in China, only to have that bitch escape that lab and infect China first. The reason why Trump kept saying China, 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 China is that he wants people to be upset with China because he needs China to be an enemy so that when it comes out that COVID was either stolen from the American government, which I don't really think is highly plausible.
Well, it literally sounds like that. It sounds like a COVID operation where the guy was actually tagged and all he did was say the code color and code number, and they had to let him go. Is literally what it sounded like to me. If anybody knows what I'm saying, like you say certain things, they have to let you go if you know what you're saying. If you say the right phrase for that day, you get clearance. Period. No discussion, no nothing, even if you're grabbed.
So here's the other theory, which I'm really starting to believe is far more plausible. Ready? Donald Trump sold a biological weapon to the Chinese rebels because we don't like communist China, right? So if somebody does something to the leaders of communist China, then that's good in the interests of the West. So he sold them a bioweapon that was released on China. So the rebels attacked communists. So Luke Skywalker blew up the Death Star. How do I feel about that? And the only reason why this makes sense to me, where'd Trump get the money to balance the budget? How did the American economy get fixed? Where'd the money come from? What did they sell that was of such a magnitude value that would actually affect the American economy in a positive way, opposed to it? It ain't no fucking Teslas, I'm telling you that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I have your answer. Because I was looking into this about June, July, August of 19. And I literally put out the bulletin. Tell me something that they sold, because they're always buying land. Tell me something that they sold. And somebody told me that they sold something in West Australia. I don't remember what kind of refinery or resource it was. I don't remember exactly. It was some kind of resource. And they sold it, and it was huge, like big. And I wanted to be that big. And as soon as that occurred, I was like, okay, this is actually the cover up so that nobody gets caught with fraud. I don't care what they really sold, but you want to know what's about to happen? Biological weapon worldwide. And I called it summer. Just like January 6th, I was calling it in October, weeks before it actually hit. It actually hit. So I was on top of this just like you were. And then I noticed whenever it hit, I was like, okay, here's your information. Like I always have been. I'm going to back off and let you figure it out. You do you, girl. I do me.
Yeah.
So-
And at this point, whether or not Trump sold a biological weapon to Chinese rebels is subjective at this point. We're not saying he did. So let's, before somebody tries to jump our shit or tries to file a lawsuit, no, we are not making any sort of accusations. We are not
That's why I said
declaring
they
this
sold the
as
land
a
in
definitive
Australia.
fact. Yeah, we are speculating that this is one possible avenue of how it could have gone, and is something worth looking into. It is nothing more than thought and speculation that is worth giving thought and research to.
Revan.
Diligence and discernment. Thank you, Tin Man.
Yes.
We had 3 Chinese nationals get busted here in Fresno running a bio lab. Three
Sounds a whole lot
bio
like-
labs here in Fresno where I live, all busted by the FBI and the DOJ.
Sounds a whole lot like the
Couple years
dancing
back.
the dancing Hebrews there after 9/11. It's very interesting. It's kind of like the same principle, but not, you know what I mean? The same but different. So
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I want to do all of this North American Union stuff with us and right, is that I used to have a rule. We can't talk about the rest of the world until we've talked about ourselves. And I think that this North American Union breakdown, 51st state, accusing Trump of selling bioweapons. I really think we really did shake the finger at ourselves this time around. And next time we get together, I think we could really start delving into January 6th, Zionist Israel, the war in the Middle East, what Russia and Ukraine, what's happening here. We can start touching those subjects in the future. But I myself, I have to call it a night. It's been an hour. I've secluded myself from my family long enough, unfortunately, and I will be looking forward to doing this with you guys again.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us. Good to have you back. Good to see that you're still with us, fighting the good fight. You know, we wondered for a long time what had become of you, but we're glad to see that you're still around, still got some fight left in you, brother.
I ain't dead yet.
All right.
All
All
right.
right. Well, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and if you're going to do a close, I'm gonna shut the fuck up and let you do the close.
All right. I'm gonna do the close on behalf of everybody who participated. Thank you so much, and for everybody watching this, this is Tin Man with the Resistance. If you're watching this, you are the Resistance.
You.